So this is Baruch here at the Tikkun Elevator Kolo. Let me get this back up. Now we're continuing on in the RASHASH, and I want to say that I'm going to, actually I went through this in a share earlier, and my video just wasn't working properly, so I'm doing it again. I'm going to skip this part here, the Lashon Harav Zal, the Sefer Kavanos, Yashan Bekitzer. So this is Bekitzer because what it is, it has lots of ideas in it. Some that we can follow, some that we can't follow, and it needs more background. So I went through it. That's the kavanot of the rabbi. I think he's referring to the RASHASH. And this is a descendant of the RASHASH, the Lashon Harav Divrei Shalom. And he has what to say also, again, very complex. So now we're going to go over to the beginning of the bracha that we're going to say in Megillah, and we're going to be looking mamash at the RASHASH. So he says it comes of the Shem Yichud. This is a Shem Yichud that you say before you're making a bracha, and this is a comment or a characterization of what's going on. He says you're going to say like this: Kodem Kriyas in Megillah, before you read the Megillah, you should make this phrase: the Shem Yichud Kudsha Barichu Shkinte, and then he shows you just Zun, which shows you a shulav of the two names, Havaya and Adni. So you're looking to make a yichud in Zun. But he says that the way that the yichud comes about is through dechilu v'rechimu, and he's going to explain that dechilu means fear and rechimu means love. But also at the same time, and then he says that this is what it looks like. It looks like a shulav of the name Yud K Vav K, like that, and Aleph K, Yud K, like that. Put them all together. He's going to explain a little bit more. Or it could be the opposite, where it begins with an Aleph, is Aleph K, Yud K, or Yud K, Vav K, like that. So these are two different ways of mishalev the two names. So he writes, and going through the Tiv now, on number Tes Zion, which is going on the phrase Kodem Kriyas, the Kodem Kriyas in Megillah. He says, he says like this: Kodem Kriyas in Megillah, Ayomar the Shem Yichud Kudsha Barichu Shkinte. To make this phrase, Lifnei Kol Mitzvah Mitzvah, Orem Anuchas Anusach Hazech Shuhu the Shem Yichud Kudsha Barichu Shkinte. You always say this introduction. Behind the Sha'al Yadei Zeh HaMitzvah, because by doing the concept, it's like this: before you do a mitzvah, Yihah Na'asi Yichud Shal Zer Anpin Shuhu Kudsha Barichu V'nuk Shuhu Shkinte. So these words in Zachar V'nuk, male and female, opposite poles coming together, and this is the idea of Hu Yichud Zer Anpin V'nuk Shena'asa B'chol Mitzvah. Mitzvah, that's the mitzvah. This is the Yichud of these two that happens in every mitzvah. Zun, then it says Zun looks like this. Zun is the shulav of the name Havaya and Adni. The nation Na'asa Yichud Zer Anpin V'nuk Shuhu Na'asa Chayidecha B'kolcha Mitzvahs and Na'asa Ma'yidenu. So once again, the our ideas when we do a mitzvah, putting on tefillin and so on and so forth, learning Torah, all of this is a form of Yichud. And you make a yichud between these two opposite powerful forces, which is the male and the female forces. Before that, though, you have to have the concept as a yichud that takes place previous or panimi to that, first before that, which is the yichud of Abba ve'ima. In order to stream to them mochin for the purpose of the yichud. And if you don't have this flow of shefa that comes from Abba ve'ima, so the idea is that all Yehudim really have the power of something of forces that come before that, male and female forces in this case, but you know that it goes all the way up to the Avsag, the Ak, goes to a very, very high level. So therefore, before doing any mitzvah, you have to have the idea that a yichud is going to take place between Abba ve'ima first. V'kachu seder tamid. This is the way it always is. The Moshe Betzida b'kavanas Kriya Shema lifnecha tefillas amida. We find this, for example, in Kriya Shema. You do the Kriya Shema before you get to Shemona Esrei. The Shemona Esrei is the Yichud Zachar V'Nog. Shebakavana b'Kriya Shema al Yichud Abba v'Ima. So this is what happens in the Kriya Shema. That your kavanah there should be that a yichud is going to take place between Abba v'Ima, b'hu hachana, and it's a preparation. Lifnei tefillas amida shena'asi yichud shel zachar v'nog. V'chein hu b'kol mitzvahs, and it's the same thing with all the mitzvahs. But b'chidas yichud na'asach yedech b'shilav shel shnei shemas kadoshim. So this happens as a result of a combination of two holy names. Yedech b'shilav shel shemas avaya adni na'asat zivug zachar v'nog. V'yedech b'shilav shnei shemas avaya ekya na'asat zivug shel abba v'ima. So havaya ekya is preliminary to the havaya adni. But bira havavana, so this means like this, is that the concept of the first hay is going to be together with the vav, that's hay and vav. That's going to be before the vav comes with the lower hay. So bira havavana kan hu l'shem yichud kudsha barish ushkente shuhu yichud zer anpin v'nuk shuhu shilav shemas avaya adni kazeh. We look at it like this. So he said, now he says on the phrase, and this is up here, he said, b'dechilu rechimo, and then he's going to go rechimo to dechilu. He's going to go then backwards. So he shows you also the shaluvim, how they would work, and this is your kavanah. So he says what? B'dechilu rechimo, which is, begins with the name Havaya, as we said before, and it goes then after that the name Ekya. Yichud Abba v'Ima nikra dechilu rechimo. So this is called first fear, then love. Abba hu bechinas yira, hanigra hadekilo, ve'ima habeki bechinas ava. She's the concept of ava hanikra rechimo. Behind shefas, we'll look. There's a shefa coming up, and we're going to take a look at that, God willing. Ve'ichol shel abba ve'ima habehu shilav chashemas avaya ekya. It's a shilav of those names. Ve'ichol abba ve'ima mischalik v'shnei ofanim yechudim. Two different ofnei yechudim, two different kinds of ways that yechudim take place. What is that? Are those yichud pnimi v'yichud chitzon? Now he said that in the introduction. We're really seeing it everywhere. So he says, how's it go? When the yichud is taking place first in the male part, that's Abba, and then the female. He says, Al Yedech Abba, the yichud starts by the way of Abba. That's the fear factor. Romas b'shem Avaya, which is a reference to the name Avaya. Amromezes b'shem Akya, which is a reference to the name Akya. Hanikri yichud chitza. B'dechila lokim os yud shel shem Avaya. So what we do is like this. The first thing we do is we take the yud of the name Avaya, v'achakach the aleph b'shem shem Akya. So he's showing us how the construction actually takes place. Shum os hey shall shem havaya v'achar kach os hey shall shem akya. We most this before, and it's going to wind up looking like this with the aleph, with the yud, on the outside and the aleph on the inside, and then they go alternately the same way. First comes the yud part, that is the havaya part, then comes the akya part. V'yesh yichud panimi, and there's a yichud also panimi. Shemaska leyichud achyedecha v'shem ima shuhu shem akya, which is the name of akya. Then comes Abba. Abba is the name Havaya. So once again, we start with the first letter of the name Akya. And then Havaya is going to be second to the Akya in order. V'shuv os hey shel shem Akya, v'achar os hey shel shem Havaya, etc. And it goes like this, and it winds up looking like this, where you have the aleph on the outside, and all of the Akya is going to be the first letter. It's going to precede any of the Havayas. Pekan maskil yichud b'dechilu b'rechimo. So this is where it starts. The yichud starts with b'dechilu b'rechimo. Maskila mekodim es a yira. So in the case of you start, the yira comes first. Shuhu Abba Shem Avaya. V'achar rechima shehu ima shem ekya. Now this is going to be, and the chef is going to give us a better idea what's going on. Let's look a little bit more, but here's the second one. It starts with love and then fear. So this looks like where the aleph comes first of ekya, which represents love, and then the fear. So he says, "V'hu bechinas hayichud hasheni." This is the second yichud, and it can be yichud panimi, which is called the yichud panimi. So the yichud panimi and the yichud chitzon. So he says of Abba ve'ima, shemaschilim kodem im rechima shehu ima, which starts with ima first, v'hu shem ekya, v'achar kach mishalavim esadechilo. Then after that you join together with the concept of fear, shehu Abba b'shem avayim. V'zad nishlam hayichud b'kol tzadadem yitzoni panimi, v'yidei yichud Abba ve'ima nimshach hashefa l'zer anpin v'nuk. So the whole thing should have the power that is required in order for the mitzvahs to take place. So now we have a shefa kavanos, and this is what we're going to do today. We're going to look at the shefa kavanos down here in number tes, and it goes on the phrase b'dechilu rechimu. So he says, look over there, which we just looked at, which is the tiv should be arner she'aba Nikrach dekida ve'ima nikras rechimo, and ima is called rechimo. So one is called fear, one's called love. So he says he wants to go quickly through why these names attach to Abba ve'ima in this way. Let me get a drink here for a second. V'tama davar. So he says the reason is Gemosha darsha chazal b'gemora. There's a gemora in Kedusha Tanya. Rabbi Omer. Rabbi says like this. Galui v'yadura lifnei misha amavach ha'olam, shebein mekaved as imo yoser ma'ava, a son has more honor to his mother than he will to his father. Bifnei shemish dalso b'devarim, because she's always working with him and speaking to him and talking to him in a nice way to try to comfort him. The ficha hikdim hakadosh baruch hu kivud av lekivud aim. So therefore, he puts the concept of the Av first, because it's natural that he would want to put the woman first to the equal amount. I guess that's the idea. So it's known by those who know, he who knows everything, that he's more afraid of his father than he is of his mother. Because he's the one that teaches the Torah. The fichach hikdim hakadosh baruch hu. Mora aim the mora av. He comes first, and he talks about the mora of av before the aim before the av, because the av also would normally come first. To even them out, we bring it like this. So the fear comes before Abba. Now he can explain a little bit of why we need these two. Now he said the basic idea that he said is that because one represents Kitzonius and the other one Panemius, so how does that touch together what we're going to learn now? He says Rechimu v'dechilu. So he says Bir inyan Rechimu v'dechilu v'dechilu v'dechilu. Let's explain them, why we need two of these, or why the particular concepts of fear and love and fear go together to represent, well, he says, I'm trying to understand this, to represent Panemius Kitzonius. So he said, V'ayin shar ma'amari rashbe, look at there. Shekasa v'zel l'shona amar shmuel. Od mesase drosh achar b'maymech ha'nizker l'harav ha'godol zilha. V'zel l'shona, this is what he said, the word letter Yud, which represents Yira, of da ihu al resha de barnash. So what that phrase means, I'm not sure, but the translation is that the concept of the yur is on the top of the head of a person, dam ihu al on top of the resha de barnash, on top of our heads. A hey represents ava, which is something else. Hine kan mashba ki ava v'yirachem ima v'aba. So just going back to the concept of the yud and represent above ourselves, he says what it represents fear, which he said previously, is that you fear what's above you, or what's panimi to you. You want to stay where you're at, or you want to fortify your own position. But here we see that there's a keser of above Abba, which is therefore Abba is looking up in fear from where he came. Something like that. And we'll see how that the itztrich the kutra barich that you have to make a yichud for kutra barichu with fear and love. But I'll tell you something that in another place, it says the opposite. So there, in a different place, it shows that love comes before. So what's going on? So if you want, I'll explain it like this. Sha'aba nikra yira, as we know, shuhu yira min keser shugavolen mena. That's where I got that idea, that he's looking up and he's afraid about what came being judged by what's up above him. She's called love. Ki ein lo yira min abba. She's not afraid of what's above her, which is Abba. Shuhu baila. But she has love for him, with him, he says. But in the course of the yichud, you have to bring the two of them together. But so first you start with the yechido, the yechido the rechimo, the yechido. So first, then you go from love into fear. Let me slow down a little bit. So let me explain. Sure, let me explain, let me translate. He said, the first thing is that you want to make a yichud between Kutra Barichu, which is the Zohar, and the Shkinte, which is Malchus. So he says, Anfin v'nukva. So that's the nukve. So this is the male and female forces of the world coming together, making one. That's what you want. And this takes place al yedei tekidah u'b'rukima shehem Abba v'ima pirish. And this takes place as a result of going on with Abba v'ima. Now, what does he mean by this? Pirish shekasher tiyache the zecha v'nukve. When you make a yichud for zocha the nuk, sarti shetiyache b'tekidah. But before you could do that, you have to have a different yichud. The yichud of Bechila as Abba v'ima. So he says, Kedei sheyashpia hamochin dezer anpin v'nukve, because before the Zachar and Nuk can have a yichud, they have to have mochin. Those mochin come from a yichud from Abba v'ima v'yedei kach yisyach v'chuzav v'nukve gam hein. So they will also make a yichud. V'lechem sarakata v'chaknin dechida shuhu Abba. Kihu amaskil the say mochin the ima, because that's where the ball starts rolling, where he puts the mochin into ima. So therefore, everything has to start with Abba. The ima no send the zer anpin v'nukva. Then ima, her nai, enters into zer anpin and delivers the mochin there into zer anpin and ultimately into his nuk. V'achakach tachzach aliyachdam yichud sheni the zer anpin. So after that, you have to go back and you make a yichud, a second yichud, for zer anpin v'nukve ayedech brechim v'dechido, through love and fear. What does that mean? V'takdim, in that case, you're putting ima first, because ima is the element that goes into zer anpin. La'abba v'hu sod smola tachas the roshi, and that's the concept of starting with the left arm. The left arm underneath my head. What does that mean? V'hu sod hachibuk, which is a concept of of the first stage of yichud between Zachar and Nuk. He says, who's so the chibuk, which is hugging. Or to ima, because in order for this to take place, first you have to bring the light of ima, which is on the left line, the ima, the small, the zer anpin, into the small of zer anpin, sheyaskil lachabek as the nukve, so that he should begin to start hugging his female part. So putting his left arm under, so to speak, underneath the place of her head. Because if you look at the anatomy of Zachar v'Nuk, I guess she's at his chest, so therefore she's at arm level. And that's where her head would be. But after that, there's another kavanot, which is that Abba is a kavanot on Abba. That you should bring the light of Abba now coming into zer anpin and go on his right line. L'kayim hazah benukve b'yamina tachbekeni, which is the concept again on your right that you will hug me. Ad kan lashona. So v'ayin od sham shahiricha debar shezecha b'sod rei Rosh Hashanah for Sukkot. This is the concept of Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot. I don't see a reference to it expanded over here. For Ramazal, Sikein ha'inyan, so the Ramaz, he actually concludes this in the Bekitzer v'sifro Archi ha'kinuyim os yod. So he said, B'zal l'shona yira v'ava v'nikra abba v'ima. So think back and think like this, that when you start out with yira v'ava, which is the yud starts first, you're talking about a yichud that's going to take place between abba v'ima. So the yachta kudsha b'richu shkinte, that's the secret of that phrase. B'dechilu, and then you add on to it, when you're going to make this yichud, first thing you have to do is have b'dechilu come before the rechimu. So that's the first place. So now he says, oh, but in another place, b'makom acher matzilu b'rechimu dechilu. Aka inyan she'ein l'chol yichud b'mitzius ala ba'open zeh, that the way, which one wants to teach us? That the way that yichud actually takes it has to be in this way. The first, the yichud has to do with Abba v'Ima, where Abba is going to place the shefa inside of Ima. And then after that, it's going to be the other way around. Ima, which is going to go into Zer Anpin, and she's the beloved, she's going to be the loved one, is going to come first, and then Abba is going to come second. But so he said, that I already explained to you this, Bina is always called Av. I don't want to go into that anymore. So the first thing you want to do is you want to make a yichud between Zachar and Nuk. So which are the Zachar and Nuk? Well, in Sfiros they're called Tiferes and Malchus. But this can only take place if you do the Dechida v'Rechima, if you do that verse. Shehem Abba v'Ima. Now he's going to explain it out better. He says, V'ha'inyan, that we make a yichud with them. Az yizyachdach b'gam Abba v'Ima kadei says koch b'mochin. So there's a yichud that takes place at Abba v'Ima in order to be able to give them mochin. So therefore, Abba kihu hamaskil. So therefore, you have to start with Abba. The mochin have to come in. They have to be mochin in order to make a yichud. So they have to come from a higher place. Kihu hamaskil and b'menanim shachim el. So therefore, Abba starts the ball rolling by placing the shefa inside of Ima. Ve'ima nosenes alabonim, and she is the one that goes in and gives to the children. Then after that, you're going to have a second yichud. That yichud is going to take place with love, first and then fear. Ima, the Abba, that's where Ima goes first, because Ima, entering into the head of Zer Anpin, she's the outside part. He's inside of her, so therefore she's going to be the first perceived, and so therefore she's leading into Zer Anpin. But say the smaller tachs the Rosh to talk about that. Keep it or because this is how the actual process of this yichud takes place. First, the left line comes in, the or habina into the left line of Zer Anpin. Small, so therefore, in his left side of Zer Anpin, he begins to start moving to hug the Nuk. Then after that comes fear, and it's it comes fear. The hamshik ma'abel el chesed is their anpin, so that Abba now is going to come down the right line because Abba's on the right line. The kayim yamina tachbekeni, in order to be able to fill this idea that my right hand will hug me. So we have two, left hand, right hand. So he said this also corresponds to the concept of Kitzonis, which is Abba, and Penimius, which is Ima. Ima is inside now, Zer Anpin, with Abba inside of her. Small old tachas the Roshi. Im kol zechel dekidus is ordered but even so, the beginning of the real arousal comes from the right side, which is Chochmah. So he says, Lanias died to my impoverished mind, Nira, Shazaz Sod Ivdoras Hashem B'Yira. That is also the concept of serving Hashem with fear, B'Tzon Alomer, V'Yached Kudsha B'Richu Shkinta B'Tekim Askida B'Tekim B'Tekim. That is, the phrase is, if you want to make a yichud between the powerful male force of the world and the powerful female force of the world, you have to begin at a higher place, at the place of Abba Ve'ima, and have a kavanot that there's going to be a yichud takes place there. And then they will bring Malchim into Zachar V'Nog for a yichud. So that's where you have to start with the higher level first, where Yira comes first. And then after that you can celebrate in trembling, so you go like that. So first you have the Yira, then you have the Gilo, and Bereda for the joy, and with some trembling, goes in that order. Because the second time, you have to you're going to have to do it the opposite way. You're going to have love come before fear. Which is joy with fear. So he said, V'tam Sheni, the second reason, since they're always together, when they live together, and they never separate. So he said there's a rest of a drash. We have to serve Hashem with fear, below B'Yira, but not with that only, Chas v'Shalom. But actually in your trembling, you should have a tremendous amount of joy. The joy would come first. And that means that the first thing you have to do is make Chochmah v'Bina b'Yachad. You have to make them in one, and then you could make male and female into one, also in the Zachar V'Nog. So that's the shir here, the second to last shir, and this. What is today? This is 5785 is this year. This is going to be the second to last year in Purim and Mitzvah Hashem for this year. Kol Tov.